A boy gave his lunch to a poor man on the street. The next day, a luxury car stopped in front of his house. The alarm rang at 6:30 a.m. and Nathan reluctantly opened his eyes. He stared at the peeling ceiling of his small room, took a deep breath, and got up. Another day of school ahead. Another day of teasing and pitying looks. Nathan dressed quickly, putting on his faded shirt and worn-out jeans. As he entered the kitchen, he saw his mother, Martha, already up preparing a simple breakfast. "Good morning, Mom," Nathan said, forcing a smile. Martha turned around, dark circles under her tired eyes. "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well?" Nathan nodded, even though it was a lie. Worries kept him up at night, thinking about how he could help more at home. As they ate in silence, Nathan noticed his mother staring intently at an envelope on the table. "What's that, Mom?" Martha hesitated. "Nothing important, dear. Just some bills." Nathan knew it was more than that, but he didn't push. The silence between them was heavy, full of unspoken words and unanswered questions. At school, Nathan tried to focus on the lessons, but it was hard. His stomach growled with hunger. Breakfast had been too little. During recess, he sat alone in a corner of the schoolyard, watching the other students with their big lunches and new clothes. "Hey, look at poor Nathan!" shouted one of the popular boys, approaching with his group. "Where's your lunch today? Did your mom forget again?" Nathan tried to ignore them, but the laughter echoed in his ears. He shrank, wishing he could disappear. "I bet he doesn't even have a dad," another boy said. "That's why they're so poor." Those words hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. The absence of his father was a mystery that had haunted him for years. Every time he asked his mother, she would change the subject or vaguely say that he had left before Nathan was born. Back in class, Nathan could barely concentrate. The taunts replayed in his mind, mixed with questions about his father. Who was he? Why did he leave them? Was he still alive? When Nathan got home after school, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, her face buried in her hands. She looked up when she heard him come in, and Nathan saw that she had been crying. "Mom, what's wrong?" Martha tried to smile but couldn't. "Nathan, we need to talk." Nathan's heart raced. Could it be about his father? "We got an eviction notice," Martha said, her voice trembling. "If we don't pay the overdue rent in 2 weeks, we'll have to leave." Nathan felt like the ground had fallen out from under him. "But where will we go?" Martha shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I don't know, dear. I really don't know." Nathan sat down, feeling helpless. He wanted to do more, to have answers for all the questions that tormented him. But all he could do was sit there, next to his mother, as the weight of silence and uncertainty surrounded them. That night, lying in bed, Nathan couldn't sleep. The fear of eviction, the bullying at school, and the mystery of his absent father swirled in his mind. He turned, looking at the picture of his mother on the bedside table, the only family photo they had. The next morning, Nathan woke up determined to find a solution to his family's financial struggles. He left early, even before his mother was awake, leaving a note explaining that he was going out to look for work. The streets of the small town were still quiet when Nathan arrived at the local market. He started asking around in every shop if they needed any help. Sweeping, stocking shelves, anything. But the answer was always the same. "Sorry, kid, we don't have anything right now." After hours of frustrating attempts, Nathan sat on the curb, exhausted and discouraged. That's when he noticed a man sitting not too far from him. The man looked tired, his clothes dirty and worn. Nathan watched as people passed by, avoiding eye contact with the man. Driven by an impulse he couldn't explain, Nathan walked over to him. "Hello, sir. Are you okay?" The man looked at Nathan, surprised. His eyes were a deep blue marked by worry lines. "I'm fine, kid. Just a little tired." Nathan nodded, feeling an inexplicable connection to the stranger. Without thinking twice, he pulled the sandwich his mom had packed for his lunch out of his bag. "Would you like this?" "I'm not that hungry." The man hesitated, looking at Nathan with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Are you sure, son? I don't want to take your food." "Please, take it," Nathan insisted. "I really want to help." With trembling hands, the man accepted the sandwich. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means." As the man ate, Nathan told him about his job search. The man listened intently, nodding every now and then. "You know, kid," the man said after finishing the sandwich, "it's been a long time since I've seen someone with such a good heart like yours. The world needs more people like that." Nathan felt a warmth in his chest at those words. For the first time that day, he felt like he had done something truly important. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Nathan," he replied. "And yours?" The man smiled but didn't answer the question. Instead, he said, "Nathan, never lose that kindness. It's worth more than any wealth." With those words, the man stood up, thanked him again, and started to walk away. Nathan watched him leave, feeling a mix of confusion and satisfaction. What Nathan didn't notice was that, after turning the corner, the man stopped. He looked back, watching Nathan, who was still sitting on the curb. His eyes, once tired, now gleamed with a sharp interest. The man pulled a cell phone from his pocket, an expensive model that contrasted with his shabby clothes. He dialed a number and waited. "Hello?" "Yeah, it's me," the man said quietly. "I think I found someone special, a boy named Nathan. I need you to find out everything about him." With one last glance at Nathan, who was now getting up to continue his job search, the mysterious man disappeared into the streets of the town, leaving behind more questions than answers. The days were slipping by quickly, and the looming threat of eviction hung over Nathan and Martha like a dark cloud. Each morning brought with it a growing sense of urgency. Nathan intensified his job search. He began taking on tasks he would normally avoid. One day, he found himself cleaning gutters on high rooftops, his hands trembling as he balanced precariously. Another day, he helped move heavy boxes in a local warehouse, ignoring the pain in his back. "Nathan, you need to be careful," Martha said one evening, noticing the scratches on her son's arms. "I don't want you getting hurt." "I'm fine, Mom," Nathan replied, avoiding her gaze. "We need the money." Martha sighed, the worry clear on her face. She, too, was doing everything she could to bring in more income. Her hours at the local diner had doubled, and she came home exhausted every night. One afternoon, Nathan overheard his mother on the phone speaking in a low voice. "I know it's not right, but I'm desperate," she was saying. "Yes, I understand the risks." When Martha realized Nathan was listening, she quickly hung up the phone. "It's nothing, honey," she said, forcing a smile. "Just work." But Nathan knew it was more than that. The tension between them grew with each passing day. Conversations at the dinner table, once full of laughter and stories, had become short and strained. "How much do we still owe for the rent?" Nathan asked one night. Martha hesitated. "Quite a bit. But don't worry. I'll figure something out." "How?" Nathan pressed. "Mom, I know you're hiding something. What was that phone call about?" "Nathan, please," Martha said, her voice trembling. "There are things you don't understand. Then explain them to me," Nathan shouted, startling them both with his outburst. "I'm tired of secrets, Mom. First, it was about Dad, and now this. What else are you hiding? Martha's face went pale. Your father, Nathan. It's complicated. What's complicated? He left us, didn't he? Why do you never tell me the truth? Martha stood up abruptly, tears in her eyes. Go to your room, Nathan. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Nathan obeyed, slamming his bedroom door behind him. He threw himself onto the bed, frustration and anger bubbling inside him. Why wouldn't his mom trust him? What was she hiding? The next morning, Nathan woke up early, determined to find answers. While his mother was still asleep, he quietly started searching the house. At the back of a drawer, buried under piles of papers, he found an old photograph. In it, a younger Martha smiled beside a man Nathan had never seen before. They looked happy, in love. Nathan turned the photo over and saw a handwritten date, exactly 1 year before his birth. His heart raced. Could this man be his father? Why had his mother never mentioned this photo? Nathan heard footsteps approaching and quickly tucked the picture back into the drawer. When Martha entered the room, he pretended to be organizing his things to leave. Good morning, sweetheart, Martha said, her voice still tense from the argument the night before. Going job hunting again? Nathan nodded, avoiding her eyes. Yeah, I'm going to try the market again. As he left the house, Nathan felt the weight of his mother's secrets heavier than ever before. He was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But for now, the priority was avoiding eviction. With only 1 week left before the final deadline, time was running out fast. Nathan walked through the city streets, his mind torn between the worry over rent and the questions about his past. He had no idea that his recent actions had caught the attention of someone who could change everything. Fate was about to intervene in a way no one could have predicted. It was an ordinary afternoon when the doorbell at Nathan and Martha's house rang. Martha, who was cleaning the kitchen, frowned, not expecting anyone. She opened the door to find a man in a suit holding a leather briefcase. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Robert Thompson. I'm a lawyer. May I speak with you and your son, Nathan? Martha hesitated, surprised. What about? I have a proposal that may interest you both, Robert replied, his tone professional but kind. Reluctantly, Martha invited him inside. Nathan, hearing the conversation, came out of his room. Nathan, this is Mr. Thompson. He's a lawyer and wants to talk to us, Martha explained, her voice tense. The three sat in the small living room. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out some documents. I'm here representing a client who wishes to remain anonymous for now, Robert began. He was moved by an act of kindness he recently witnessed involving Nathan. Nathan and Martha exchanged confused looks. Robert continued, My client is a successful and reclusive businessman. He wants to help you financially. He's offering to pay all of your current debts, including the overdue rent, and provide a monthly allowance to cover your basic expenses for a year. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan felt his heart race. Could this be the solution to all their problems? Martha, however, seemed skeptical. Why? Why would someone do this for us? As I mentioned, my client was touched by Nathan's kindness. He believes people like him deserve a chance in life, Robert explained. What act of kindness? Martha asked, looking at Nathan. Nathan thought for a moment. It must have been when I gave my sandwich to that man on the street, he said, recalling the encounter a few days ago. Robert nodded. Exactly. My client was there and saw everything. Martha still seemed suspicious. This sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? There's no catch, ma'am, Robert assured her. My client only asks for discretion. He doesn't want any publicity about this. Nathan could barely contain his excitement. Mom, this would solve everything. We wouldn't have to worry about getting evicted. Martha looked at her son, seeing the hope in his eyes. But years of hardship had taught her to be cautious. We need time to think about this, she told Robert. The lawyer nodded understandingly. Of course. Here are the documents outlining the offer. Please read them carefully. I'll return in 2 days for your decision. After Robert left, Nathan turned to his mother. Mom, we have to accept. This is our chance. Martha sighed. Nathan, things aren't that simple. We don't know anything about this man or why he really wants to help us. But he saw me help that man on the street. Maybe he just wants to do some good, Nathan argued. Or maybe there's something more, Martha muttered, more to herself than to Nathan. That night, while Nathan slept, dreaming of a future free from financial worries, Martha stayed up, rereading the documents. Something about the entire situation troubled her deeply. She took out the photo she had hidden for years, the one Nathan almost found. Staring at the man next to her in the picture, Martha felt a chill. What if? No, it couldn't be. She had buried that past long ago. Martha put the photo away again, her mind swirling with thoughts. Accepting this offer could solve their immediate problems, but she feared it might open doors to a past she had fought so hard to leave behind. News of Nathan and Martha's sudden change in fortune spread through the small town like wildfire. In a place where everyone knew everyone's business, it was impossible to keep a secret for long. It all started when Martha paid the overdue rent in cash. The landlord, surprised, couldn't keep his mouth shut at the local bar that night. You won't believe this, he told the other patrons. Martha, the one who's always late on payments, showed up today with a stack of bills. From there, the rumors grew. People noticed Nathan wasn't doing odd jobs around town anymore. Some neighbors saw delivery drivers leaving grocery bags at their door. At school, the atmosphere changed drastically for Nathan. The same classmates who once teased him for being poor now looked at him with a mix of curiosity and envy. Hey Nathan, one of the boys called during recess. Is it true your mom won the lottery? I heard you guys found buried treasure in your backyard, another boy said, laughing. Nathan tried to ignore the comments, but it was hard. He didn't know how to respond without revealing the truth about the mysterious benefactor. At home, Martha was equally stressed with the unwanted attention. Neighbors who barely spoke to her before were now showing up more often, asking questions disguised as casual conversation. Martha, dear, said Mrs. Johnson, a nosy neighbor. I noticed you're not working as many hours at the diner anymore. Did you get a better job? Martha forced a smile. No, Mrs. Johnson. I'm just reorganizing some things. That evening, Nathan found his mom in the kitchen, looking exhausted. Mom, people won't stop asking questions at school. What should I tell them? Martha sighed. Just say we got lucky. Don't go into details. But why do we have to lie? Nathan asked, frustrated. We haven't done anything wrong. It's not that simple, Nathan, Martha replied, her tone revealing a deep weariness. There are things from the past, things you wouldn't understand. Nathan felt a surge of irritation. More secrets, always secrets. The next day, a new rumor started circulating around town. Someone claimed they saw a poorly dressed man, looking like a beggar, watching Nathan and Martha's house from a distance. Maybe it's Nathan's father, whispered a woman at the market, coming back now that they've got money. Don't be silly, another replied. I heard it's an eccentric millionaire who decided to help them. The rumor of the rich beggar spread quickly, adding another layer of mystery to Nathan and Martha's already intriguing situation. At school, things got worse for Nathan. Some classmates, driven by envy, began spreading nasty rumors. "I bet his mom is doing something illegal," said one. "Maybe they're blackmailing someone," suggested another. Nathan tried to defend himself, but the more he spoke, the bigger the speculations grew. He felt isolated, caught between the desire to protect his family and the promise to keep the benefactor's secret. At home, Martha grew more anxious by the day. Every knock on the door, every curious glance from a neighbor, made her fear that her carefully hidden past might come to light. One night, as Nathan was doing his homework, he overheard his mom on the phone speaking in a low, urgent voice. "No, you can't come here," she was saying. "It's too risky. People are already talking too much." Nathan's heart began to race. Who was his mom talking to? What else was she hiding? When Martha hung up the phone, she found Nathan staring at her full of questions. "Nathan, No," Nathan interrupted. "I don't want any more excuses, Mom. I want the truth. Who was that on the phone? What's going on?" Martha looked at her son, seeing not a child anymore, but a young man determined to understand his world. She knew the moment she had dreaded for so long had arrived. "Sit down, Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. "It's time you knew the truth about your father and our past." Nathan sat down, his heart pounding. Finally, the answers he had been seeking were about to be revealed. But he had no idea how these revelations would change his life forever. Nathan woke up the next morning, still processing the conversation with his mother. The revelations about his father and his family's past had left him confused, with more questions than answers. But he didn't have much time to dwell on it, as the reality of his new financial situation quickly set in. For the first time in years, Nathan had money in his pocket to buy new clothes. He went to the city mall, a place he had only ever seen from a distance. He walked into a store and picked out a few items: new jeans, shirts without holes, and even a pair of brand-name sneakers. When he arrived at school wearing his new clothes, the reactions were immediate. Some of his classmates looked at him with admiration, others with barely concealed envy. Nathan felt uncomfortable with the attention, but also a little proud. During recess, a group of boys approached Nathan. Among them was Mike, one of the guys who used to pick on him. "Hey Nathan," Mike said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Nice new sneakers. Where'd you steal them from?" Nathan felt his blood boil. "I didn't steal anything. I bought them with my own money," Mike laughed. "Oh yeah? And where'd you get that money? Everyone knows you were broke until last week." Other students began gathering around, drawn to the commotion. Nathan found himself at the center of attention, something he wasn't used to. "Leave him alone," a voice suddenly said. It was Emily, a quiet girl who usually kept to herself. "Just because someone's life gets better doesn't mean they did something wrong." Mike turned to Emily, his face red with anger. "Nobody asked for your opinion, weirdo." Nathan saw Emily's face twist with pain at the insult. In that moment, he had to make a choice. He could stay silent and protect his newfound social status, or he could stand up for Emily and risk becoming a target again. "Enough, Mike," Nathan said, stepping forward. "Emily's right. You don't know anything about my life, so stop making accusations." Mike looked at Nathan, surprised by his boldness. For a moment, it seemed like he was going to lash out, but then the bell rang, scattering the crowd. Later, in math class, Nathan noticed that Emily seemed upset. He saw her furiously scribbling in her notebook, tears in her eyes. When the class ended, Nathan approached her. "Hey, Emily, are you okay?" She looked at him, hesitant. "I'm fine. Thanks for standing up for me earlier." Nathan nodded. "It was nothing. Mike's a jerk." Emily smiled faintly, but then her face grew serious. Nathan, I need to tell you something. She opened her notebook, revealing calculations and notes. I saw you copying answers during last week's math test. I was going to tell the teacher, but Nathan's stomach dropped. It was true. In the rush to deal with everything happening in his life, he had done something he never thought he would. He cheated. Emily, you don't have to explain, she interrupted. I understand you're probably going through a lot. Just don't do it again, okay? Nathan looked at Emily, feeling a mix of shame and gratitude. Here was someone he barely knew, offering him a second chance. I promise I won't do it again, Nathan said, his voice firm. And thank you for not telling. Emily smiled. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? That night, lying in bed, Nathan reflected on the day. He had new clothes, money in his pocket, but he had also faced accusations and nearly got caught cheating. The life he thought would be easier with money was proving to be much more complicated. He picked up the new phone his mother had bought him and opened his contact list. There were names there that had ignored him before, but now wanted to be his friends. And among them, he added a new name, Emily. Nathan fell asleep thinking about how the generosity of the mysterious benefactor had changed his life. But he also realized that the real challenge wasn't getting money, but keeping his integrity and true friends in the process. Meanwhile, outside the house, a figure watched Nathan's bedroom window. The mysterious man on the street smiled faintly, pleased with what he saw, but knowing that the real tests for Nathan were still to come. It was a quiet afternoon when the doorbell rang at Martha and Nathan's house. Martha, who was preparing dinner, went to answer it, expecting it to be just another curious neighbor. But when she opened the door, her face turned pale. Standing before her was a middle-aged man with graying hair and piercing eyes. "Hello, Martha," he said, his voice deep and familiar. "It's been a while." Martha froze for a moment, her mind processing the shock. "Jack," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" Jack smiled, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "Can I come in? We have a lot to talk about." Reluctantly, Martha let him in. Nathan, who was in his room, heard voices and decided to investigate. He quietly came down the stairs, stopping halfway when he overheard the tense conversation in the living room. "You shouldn't be here, Jack," Martha was saying, her voice trembling. "We had an agreement." "Things have changed, Martha," Jack replied. "I heard about your sudden change in fortune. I figured it was time to revisit our arrangement." Nathan leaned in closer, trying to hear better. Who was this man? What kind of deal did his mother have with him? "There's nothing to revisit," Martha insisted. "The past is in the past." Jack let out a dry laugh. "The past never really stays in the past, does it? Especially when there are secrets involved. Secrets your son might want to know about." Hearing the mention of himself, Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. He wanted to go down and confront this stranger, but something kept him frozen in place. Martha looked like she was on the verge of tears. "Please, Jack, don't do this. Nathan doesn't need to know." "Doesn't need to know what?" Jack interrupted. "That his father is alive? That he's standing right here in his living room?" Nathan felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. His father? This man was his father? Unable to hold back, Nathan descended the rest of the stairs, stepping into the room. "Mom?" he called, his voice shaking. "What's going on?" Martha turned, horror in her eyes as she saw Nathan. "Nathan, honey, go back to your room. It's nothing." But Jack smiled, extending his hand toward Nathan. "Hello, son. We finally meet." Nathan looked at his mother, searching for confirmation, but Martha seemed to have lost the ability to speak. She just stood there, trembling, looking from Jack to Nathan. You're my father? Nathan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jack nodded. I am. Your mother kept us apart all these years, but now I'm here. Nathan felt a wave of conflicting emotions, anger, confusion, a strange sense of relief. All the questions he had about his father seemed to be on the verge of being answered. Martha finally found her voice. Nathan, it's not like that. Jack, please don't do this. But Jack continued, ignoring Martha's pleas. I always wanted to be in your life, Nathan. Your mother wouldn't allow it. Nathan turned to his mother, tears in his eyes. Is that true? You kept me away from my father all this time? Martha looked defeated. Nathan, there are things you don't understand. It's complicated. Complicated? Nathan shouted, his voice cracking. You lied to me my whole life. Jack placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. It's okay, son. I'm here now. We can make up for lost time. Nathan looked at the man claiming to be his father, then back at his mother. He saw fear in her eyes, something he had never seen before. Despite his anger, something didn't feel right. I need some air, Nathan said suddenly, pulling away from Jack and running out of the house. As he ran down the street, his mind was spinning. His father was alive. He was here. But why? Why now? And why did his mother seem so scared? Nathan didn't know where he was going, but he knew he couldn't go back home. Not yet. Not until he understood what was really going on. As he ran, tears streamed down his face. The feeling of betrayal fighting with his confusion and yearning for answers. Back at the house, Martha faced Jack, her voice low and threatening. You're not his father. How dare you come here and lie like this? Jack just smiled. Maybe not biologically, Martha, but you know I have just as much right as anyone to claim that title. And now that you've got money, well, I think it's time we settle our accounts. Martha trembled, knowing that the shadows of her past had finally caught up with her, and now they threatened not only her, but also her son. Nathan came home late at night, exhausted and emotionally drained. He found Martha sitting in the living room, her eyes red from crying. Jack was gone, but his presence still lingered in the air like a shadow. Why did you lie to me? Nathan asked, his voice filled with hurt. Martha let out a deep sigh. Nathan, it's not that simple. Simple? Nathan interrupted. My father is alive. How is that not simple? Martha hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Jack. He's not who he says he is, Nathan. What do you mean? Nathan asked, confused. He's not your father, Martha said firmly. Nathan shook his head in disbelief. No. You're lying again. Why would he say he's my father if he isn't? Martha tried to approach Nathan, but he stepped back. Sweetheart, there are things from my past, things I'm not proud of. Jack is part of that. Then tell me, Nathan shouted. I'm tired of secrets. Martha opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. How could she explain years of complications and mistakes to her 14-year-old son? Seeing his mother's hesitation, Nathan felt his anger grow. Fine. If you won't tell me the truth, I'll find out for myself. In the days that followed, Nathan began secretly meeting with Jack. They would meet at the local park where Jack told stories about the past stories that Nathan believed were about his childhood. I remember when you were a baby, Jack would say, smiling. You had the brightest eyes I've ever seen. Nathan soaked up every word, finally feeling like he was filling the emptiness that had always existed in his life. Meanwhile, Martha watched helplessly as her son drifted further away from her. She knew Jack was dangerous, but revealing the truth would mean exposing secrets she had sworn never to tell. One night during dinner, Nathan casually mentioned, Jack invited me to spend the weekend with him. Martha dropped her fork. Absolutely not. Why not? Nathan challenged. He's my father. He's not your father, Nathan, Martha yelled, losing her composure. Then who is? Nathan shouted back. Tell me the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. Martha, with tears in her eyes, shook her head. I can't. Nathan stood up from the table, furious. Great, then I'll go live with Jack. At least he doesn't lie to me. Martha watched, heartbroken, as her son stormed upstairs and slammed his bedroom door. She knew she was losing Nathan, but fear of the past held her captive. The next morning, Nathan left early, saying he was going to school, but instead, he went to meet Jack. I'm ready, Nathan said. I want to live with you. Jack smiled, but there was something in his eyes that Nathan couldn't quite understand. Great, kid. Let's go home. As they walked, Nathan noticed they weren't heading toward any house. Instead, Jack led him to a dark alley. Jack? Nathan asked, starting to feel afraid. Where are we going? Suddenly, Jack grabbed Nathan's arm tightly. Listen here, kid. You're going to do exactly what I say. Your mother has money now, and we're going to get our share. Nathan's world fell apart. You're not my father? Jack laughed coldly. Of course not, you idiot. But you were useful to get close to your mother. In that moment, Nathan understood the true meaning of fear. He tried to pull away, but Jack was too strong. Help! Nathan screamed. Suddenly, there was a loud noise, and Jack fell to the ground. Behind him stood Martha, holding a piece of wood. Nathan! She cried, running to embrace him. Nathan, trembling, looked at his mother. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have believed you. Martha hugged him tightly. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay now. As the police arrived to take Jack away, Nathan looked at his mother. Mom, who is he really? And who is my real father? Martha sighed. It's time for you to know the whole truth, Nathan. Let's go home. We have a lot to talk about. As they walked home, Nathan realized that the truth, no matter how painful, was better than the lies that had almost torn his family apart. He was ready to hear the full story, no matter how hard it was. After the shocking revelation about Jack, Nathan felt completely lost. The trust he once had in his mother, already shaken, now seemed beyond repair. That night, as a storm gathered in the sky, Nathan made an impulsive decision. He waited until Martha fell asleep, grabbed a backpack with some clothes and food, and silently slipped out through the back door. The rain was pouring when Nathan reached the deserted streets of the town. He had no plan, only the urgent need to get away from everything. The wind howled, whipping the rain against his face as he walked aimlessly. Meanwhile, Martha woke up with a bad feeling. When she checked Nathan's room and found it empty, panic overtook her. She immediately called the police and began reaching out to neighbors and friends. News of Nathan's disappearance quickly spread through the small community. Despite the storm, search parties were formed. Flashlights cut through the darkness as voices called out Nathan's name. Nathan, soaked and shivering, found shelter under a bridge. Sitting there, alone in the darkness, he began reflecting on recent events. Jack's lie, his mother's secrets, the sudden changes in their lives. It all swirled in his mind. Who am I really? Nathan murmured to himself, his voice nearly drowned out by the sound of the rain. Meanwhile, the mysterious benefactor, upon hearing of Nathan's disappearance, decided to get involved personally in the search. He knew the town better than most and had resources others didn't. The storm worsened. Nathan, realizing the danger of staying under the bridge with the rising water, decided to move. But as he tried to leave, he slipped in the mud and fell into the rushing water. "Help!" he screamed, fighting against the current. but his voice was swallowed by the roar of the storm. Nathan struggled to keep his head above water, panic gripping him. In that moment, all his problems seemed insignificant compared to the fight for survival. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed his arm, pulling him out of the water. Nathan found himself face to face with a man he vaguely recognized, the man from the market to whom he had given his sandwich. "Are you okay, kid?" the man asked, his voice filled with concern. Nathan, coughing and shivering, just nodded. The man took off his coat and wrapped it around Nathan. "Come on, we need to get you out of this rain." They took shelter in a small shed nearby. The man lit a lantern, illuminating the cramped space. "Why did you run away, Nathan?" the man asked gently. Nathan, surprised that the stranger knew his name, hesitated before responding. "How do you know who I am?" The man smiled kindly. "I know a lot about you, Nathan. In fact, I'm the reason your life has changed recently." Nathan's eyes widened in realization. "You're the mysterious benefactor?" The man nodded. "My name is David, and I think it's time we had a conversation." Nathan, still trembling from the cold and emotion, looked at David with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. "Why? Why did you help us?" David sighed, a distant look in his eyes. "It's a long story, Nathan. A story that involves your mother, your father, and yes, even me." Nathan's heart raced. "You knew my father?" "Yes, I knew him," David replied. "In fact, he was my best friend." The words hung in the air, full of promises of long-sought answers. Nathan, despite his fear and confusion, felt an unexpected connection to this man who seemed to hold the keys to his past. "Tell me," Nathan said, his voice barely a whisper. "Please, tell me everything." David looked at the boy in front of him, seeing in him echoes of the friend he had lost so long ago. "I will tell you, Nathan. But first, we need to get you back to your mother. She must be worried sick." Nathan hesitated, remembering the anger and disappointment that had driven him to run away. But something in David's calm presence made him reconsider. "Okay," he finally agreed. As they prepared to leave the shed, the storm began to ease. Nathan looked at David, sensing he was about to embark on a journey that would finally bring light to the shadows of his past. "I'm ready," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the lingering fear. David smiled, placing a reassuring hand on Nathan's shoulder. "Let's go, kid. It's time for you to learn the truth about your family." Together, they stepped out into the night, ready to face the revelations that awaited them. David and Nathan arrived at Martha's house, where they found a chaotic scene. Police officers, neighbors, and friends were gathered, all visibly relieved to see Nathan safe and sound. Martha ran to hug her son, tears streaming down her face. "Nathan, thank God you're okay." When she saw David, her eyes widened in recognition and shock. "David? What? How?" David stepped forward, his expression serious. "Hello, Martha. I think it's time we had that conversation." The three of them entered the house, leaving the curious crowd outside. Sitting in the living room, a tense silence filled the air. David was the first to speak. "Nathan, there's something you need to know. Something that should have been said a long time ago." He paused, looking at Martha, who reluctantly nodded. "I'm your father." Nathan felt as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. "What? But how? Why?" David sighed deeply. "It's a long story, but you deserve to know the truth. 15 years ago, I was a young businessman, focused only on building my empire. I met your mother, and we fell in love. But I wasn't ready to be a father." Martha intervened, her voice trembling. "When I found out I was pregnant, David panicked. He offered me money to, well, not have the baby. Nathan looked at his newly discovered father, feeling a wave of anger. "You didn't want me?" David shook his head, regret evident in his eyes. "I was young and foolish, Nathan. I made the biggest mistake of my life that day," Martha continued. "I refused the money and told David I would raise you alone. He agreed to stay out of our lives." "Then why now?" Nathan asked, confused. "Why this whole mysterious benefactor story?" David leaned forward, looking directly into Nathan's eyes. "Because I realized my mistake. I spent years watching you from afar, seeing you grow, wishing I could be part of your life. When I saw you give your sandwich to me, disguised as a homeless man at the market, I realized you had become a better person than I ever was. I wanted to make things right, but I didn't know how." Nathan felt a confusing mix of emotions, anger at his father's absence, relief at finally knowing the truth, and a deep uncertainty about how to feel about it all. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked Martha, his voice breaking. Martha wiped her tears. "I wanted to protect you, Nathan. I was afraid that knowing the truth would only hurt you more," David continued. "The money I gave you, it was my attempt to make up for the lost years. But I've realized that money can't buy back lost time or a family's love." Nathan stood up abruptly, unable to handle all the emotions flooding over him. I need some time." He walked out to the backyard, leaving his parents in the living room. The night was clear now, the stars shining after the storm. Nathan looked up at the sky, trying to process everything he had just learned. Minutes later, he heard footsteps behind him. It was David. "Nathan, I know it's a lot to take in," David said softly. "And I understand if you hate me." Nathan turned to face the man who was his father. "I don't hate you," he said after a moment. I don't know how to feel." David nodded. "That's fair. I don't expect you to forgive me or accept me right away. I just want a chance to be part of your life, if you'll let me." Nathan looked at the house, where his mother was watching through the window, and then back at David. I think we can try," he finally said. A small smile appeared on David's face. "That's all I can ask for." They walked back inside, where Martha was waiting anxiously. Nathan looked at his parents, two people who, despite their mistakes, clearly loved him. "So, what happens now?" Nathan asked. Martha and David exchanged glances. "That's up to you, honey," Martha said. "We can take it slow, one day at a time." David agreed. "I don't want to disrupt your lives, but I would like the chance to get to know my son." Nathan took a deep breath. "Okay," he said. "Let's try this. But no more secrets, no more lies. Promise?" Both adults nodded solemnly. As the night wore on, the three of them began to talk, sharing stories and starting the long process of becoming a family. Nathan knew that the road ahead would be difficult and complicated, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he finally knew the truth about who he was and where he came from. The revelation brought not just answers, but also a new set of challenges. However, with the truth finally out in the open, there was hope that they could face those challenges together, as a family. In the days following the revelation, the news quickly spread throughout the small town. Nathan, Martha, and David became the subject of everyone's conversations. Curious glances followed them wherever they went, and the whispers were hard to ignore. Nathan felt torn. On one hand, he was relieved to finally know the truth about his origins. On the other hand, the anger and resentment for the years of secrets and absence still burned in his chest. One morning, as he was walking to school, Nathan overheard hurtful comments from some of the townspeople. "Look at that. The kid with the millionaire dad," said a man. "I bet it was all planned. His mom probably set the whole thing up," murmured a woman. The words cut through him like knives. Nathan ran the rest of the way to school, trying to escape the stares and remarks. At school, things weren't any better. His classmates treated him differently, some with envy, others with disdain. "Hey Nathan," called out Mike, the school bully. "Now that your dad's rich, how about lending me some money?" Nathan clenched his fists, struggling to keep calm. Emily, his friend, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ignore them," she whispered. "They don't understand." But Nathan couldn't ignore it. The anger, the confusion, and the hurt built up inside him, threatening to overflow. After school, Nathan found David waiting for him. "I thought we could spend some time together," David said hesitantly. Nathan nodded silently. They walked to the local park where several people watched them and whispered. "How are you handling all this?" David asked. Nathan exploded. "How do you think I'm handling it? Everyone is talking about us. My friends are treating me differently, and I still don't know how to feel about you or about Mom." David listened patiently. "I understand, Nathan. I know we made mistakes that hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive us right away." "And what if I never forgive you?" Nathan asked, his voice trembling. "Then we'll have to accept that," David replied softly. "But I hope you'll give us a chance to try and make things right." At that moment, a group of townspeople approached. Among them was Mr. Johnson, a respected member of the community. "So it's true," Mr. Johnson said, looking from Nathan to David. "The mysterious millionaire is the absent father." "That's none of your business," Nathan said, surprising even himself with his boldness. Mr. Johnson frowned. "It's all of our business when there's been deception in our community. Your mother misled us for years." David stepped forward. "My ex-partner didn't deceive anyone. She protected our son." "Protected?" someone in the crowd shouted. "By depriving him of a father?" The situation was becoming tense. Nathan looked around, seeing accusing faces and hearing harsh words. Despite his own hurt, he felt a surge of protectiveness for his mother. "Enough!" Nathan shouted, shocking everyone. "You don't know anything. My mom raised me on her own, working hard every day. She doesn't deserve your judgment." The crowd fell silent, stunned by Nathan's outburst. "And you," Nathan turned to David, "you may have made mistakes, but you're trying to fix things now. That counts for something." David looked at his son with a mix of surprise and pride. Nathan took a deep breath, making a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "I forgive you," he said, looking from David to his mother, who had arrived during the commotion. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." The crowd murmured, clearly not expecting that reaction. "But forgiveness comes with conditions," Nathan continued. "No more secrets, no more lies. And you two," he looked at his parents, "are going to have to work hard to rebuild our family." Martha and David nodded, tears in their eyes. "As for the rest of you," Nathan addressed the community, "our family life is not a spectacle for your entertainment. Respect our privacy." With those words, Nathan took his parents' hands and began walking away from the astonished crowd. As they walked away, David whispered, "I'm proud of you, son." Nathan felt warmth in his chest at those words. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, he felt like he had the power to shape his own destiny. Nathan's decision to forgive, but with conditions, surprised everyone. It wasn't the fairy tale happy ending some had hoped for, nor the bitter rejection others had predicted. It was something more complex, more real and difficult, but hopeful, beginning for a new chapter in their lives. The months that followed Nathan's revelation and forgiveness were a roller coaster of emotions and adjustments for the newly reunited family. Martha, David, and Nathan tried to navigate their new dynamics, sometimes stumbling but always striving to move forward. David began spending more time in town, renting an apartment nearby to be closer to Nathan. Their initial meetings were awkward and tense, filled with long silences and forced conversations. But gradually, father and son started to get to know each other genuinely. Martha watched their growing bond with a mix of joy and apprehension. She feared losing the special place she had always held in Nathan's life, but made an effort to support their developing relationship. One evening, during a family dinner, Nathan surprised his parents with an idea. "I want to start a community project," he announced. Martha and David exchanged curious glances. "What kind of project, dear?" Martha asked. Nathan explained his idea: a mentorship program for children from low-income families, offering educational and emotional support. "My journey made me realize how many kids might be going through similar struggles," Nathan said. "I want to do something to help." David smiled, feeling proud. "That's a wonderful idea, Nathan. How can I help?" "Well," Nathan hesitated, "I was hoping you could assist with the initial funding." David nodded immediately. "Of course, I'd be happy to contribute. But with one condition: you need to lead the project. It will be a great experience for you." Nathan agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness about the challenge ahead. In the following weeks, Nathan worked hard to bring his project to life. He faced obstacles: bureaucracy, skeptics in the community, and his own inexperience. But he persevered. Martha helped him organize the practical details, while David provided guidance on management and finances. The project, which Nathan named New Beginnings, slowly gained support in the community. Many of the same people who had once gossiped about his family now praised his initiative. One Saturday, during the official opening of the community center where the project would be based, Nathan found himself before a crowd that included his parents, school friends, and community members. "Thank you all for being here," Nathan began, his voice trembling slightly. "A few months ago, I was lost, filled with anger and confusion, but I learned that even in the toughest situations, we can find strength and purpose." He paused, looking at his parents. "I learned that family isn't perfect. We make mistakes, hurt each other, but we can also forgive and rebuild." The crowd listened in silence, many nodding in agreement. "This project is about giving children what I received: a second chance, an opportunity to overcome challenges and build a better future." When Nathan finished his speech, the room erupted in applause. Martha and David stepped forward, embracing him with pride. "You surprise us every day," Martha whispered, tears in her eyes. In the months that followed, Nathan balanced his time between school, the project, and building relationships with his parents. It wasn't always easy. There were days when old wounds resurfaced, and anger threatened to overshadow forgiveness. But Nathan learned to set healthy boundaries. He was honest about his feelings, expressing when he needed space or when something bothered him. David and Martha, in turn, respected those boundaries, always striving to be open and honest. The New Beginnings project thrived. Nathan witnessed firsthand how his own experiences could help other children navigate family challenges. He became not just a mentor, but also a beacon of resilience and forgiveness. 1 year after the revelation that changed their lives, the family gathered for a picnic in the park. As Nathan watched Martha and David laughing together while preparing food, he reflected on his journey. "What are you thinking about?" Emily, who had joined them, asked. Nathan smiled. "How quickly life can change. How the truth, as painful as it might be, is always better than a lie." Emily nodded. "And what about forgiveness?" "Forgiveness is complicated," Nathan replied after a moment. "It's not about forgetting the past, but choosing not to let it control your future." He looked at his parents again. Family isn't perfect. It's messy, complicated, sometimes painful, but it can also be the source of our greatest strength and joy. As they came together for the meal, Nathan felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead would still have challenges, but he knew they would face them together as a family. Nathan's journey from a lonely, confused boy to a strong, compassionate young man was a testament to the power of truth, forgiveness, and unconditional love. He learned that family isn't defined solely by blood, but by the choices we make every day to love and support each other, no matter